Yo, fam. Alhamdulillah.
Ah, give a hand. Give a hand. I'm done. Stanley.
So we are in now. So we get to see the whole room, right? Are you there?
Thank you, sir. Welcome, sir. Thank you. The Gaga Messiah.
Yeah, bra.
Make them for
Bra,
you.
who do I know for them? Yeah.
We don't money. In fact, myself, I consult with him. Wow. On my farm in taxi now. Wow. I was consulting him.
Oh, truck right.
Hey,
and also to beg Anache and all the invited guests that after my brief remark, our excavations that we do on the field with those who are struggling. Nanache, I would beg again to rely on all the protocols that have already been established and to say that I'm really excited that you are within this great institution situated here in the Madina constituency, hosting this national dialogue. It is a very, very significant dialogue because recently I had the opportunity to be nominated to serve on the GRA board. And for that reason, a conversation like this and the recommendations that will come out of this conversation will be so key to those of us serving on that board as we provide some guidance and direction and monitoring and supervision for the work at the GRA. So I just want to wish all of you well. I have seen my tax lecturer here, Professor Ali Nachia, and then also seen my mentor and I'm really you not forgive me that I'm forgetting their names. Yeah, from Jan. It's because of their leadership. That is why we are where we are today. It's our duty to be honest where we are in our lives as the watch us go through the law. And so you are most welcome. Enjoy your stay, and I can assure you that every recommendation that will come out of this gathering will definitely be implemented to ensure that we shall have tax revenue in Ghana. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for doing this under 5 minutes.
Another round of applause for him. Now, this is refreshing because for the first time this afternoon, we are going to hear from a woman. I thought you'd clap for that. Yes. The men have been poured into us, and it's time for us to hear from a woman. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome on stage the Deputy Commissioner of Ghana Revenue Authority, LC Apawu Esquire, to give us his special address for us this afternoon in a lovely colors. Oh, you're representing Purple Man, don't you? Yes, you see the women, we know how to do it. Another round of applause for it. 10 minutes.
Thank you very much, MC. Former Finance Minister has agreed to pay his tax for we're using the time this afternoon. And we are ready to collect same. Thank you.
We are playing to ensure that our country is transformed for the benefit of our people. Let me begin with the fundamental truth. The path to Ghana's economic independence runs directly through effective tax administration. Our failure to achieve optimal levels of tax revenues has meant that expectations of the greater revenues we should generate. For example, our country has seen too many tax reforms. We implemented 2 software programs in Ghana for tax purposes. The last count, 20 software programs. And GRA, as we know, is one of the biggest state institutions by the world. Notwithstanding all this, our tax system exhibits evidence of low tax elasticity. This means that tax revenue generated has not been as significantly sensitive to changes in economic activity or tax reforms, because we expected to get more, following all these interventions that we have made as a country. We are therefore not near our median potential in tax revenue, and this is demonstrated by available data. Ghana's tax to GDP ratio stands around 14%, specifically at around 13.8%. And tax to non-oil GDP stands at 17%. When I was existing as finance minister, I thought we had taken it to about 70% in tax to GDP ratio. But once the GDP data was revised, it brought us back around 40%. It means that there is potential, and we can do better given the size of GDP that we have today. Ladies and gentlemen, while this represents some improvement, it still falls below the sub-Saharan African average of 60%, and far below the OECD average of 34%. A VAT gap analysis conducted by GRA in 2022 also found an estimated gap of 61%, meaning that the actual VAT revenue collected in Ghana is only 39% of its potential. Similarly, for corporate income tax, the gap is estimated at a staggering 81.5% on a representative sample used in 2013. These figures demonstrate that our challenges as a country are not a shortage of tax instruments or tax reforms, but rather their effective administration and implementation. But the effects of not realizing our tax potential are staggering. They represent the much needed schools that are not built, the hospitals that are not equipped, and the roads that are not paved. In fact, our development financing needs continue to grow as the infrastructure deficit remains very high at $15 billion United States dollars for the next 10 years. This gives you an average of $1.5 billion a year. Efficiency cost of $1.1 billion to the economy, and a housing deficit of 2 million units. There's domestic resource mobilization. The global landscape of development finance is also fast transforming before our very eyes. For example, the OECD reports that international aid fell by 7.1% in real terms in 2024 compared with 2023. And this was driven by reduced contributions to international organizations and decreased humanitarian aid. About one-half of external inflows in 2024, the Sub-Saharan Africa came from official development assistance, of which nearly one-quarter came from the United States of America, and same from Europe. The future of ODA flows is uncertain, as the US is reviewing its entire foreign assistance program. Several large EU donors have also indicated plans to reduce official assistance, as they try to create fiscal room to increase security and defense spending, following the new strategy of the US to withdraw security guarantees. USAID provides Ghana approximately $150 million annually, supporting critical sectors in health, economic growth, agriculture, education, and governance. Yet, this support faces elimination under recent executive orders by the Trump administration. The United Kingdom, which has contributed approximately £2.8 billion in bilateral aid to Ghana over the past 2 decades, is also reprioritizing its overseas aid, shifting resources to poorer and more fragile countries. This has already resulted in significant reductions in bilateral aid programming in social sectors, with education and health seeing the most significant cuts. Moreover, ladies and gentlemen, we operate within an environment where approximately $88.6 billion leaves the African continent through illicit financial flows. Altogether, the developed world is becoming increasingly protective. As the global north turns inwards, we, the global south, particularly in Ghana, must tend towards prioritizing domestic efforts at mobilizing resources and prudently managing these resources for the betterment of our people. Our revenue sources, tax and non-tax revenue, bilateral loans, and borrowing from domestic and international capital markets remain mostly inadequate to finance our growth and development. Particularly, as we exit the cloud of debt-distressed countries, through our successful debt restructuring, which resulted in almost $11 billion of savings through debt relief, our constraints in international credit markets will continue to restrain international debt financing as a sustainable source of development financing. The sad reality is that our current profile and size of domestic tax revenue alone cannot even finance our recurring expenditure. Against this compelling reality, ladies and gentlemen, we must do more to raise more domestic revenue to support our development aspirations. We can do this by challenging our conventional wisdom and preconceptions about taxes generally. We play too much with taxes, and this is the bane of our progression as a country. Ladies and gentlemen, this reality must therefore be embraced by all Ghanaians. Fact is, in a democracy such as ours, taxation promotes accountability. It is therefore everybody's business. While we are therefore confronted with tax revenue leakages, must be a blot on our national conscience, as many of these leakages are perpetrated by some of our citizens in collaboration with foreign partners. When discussion ways increase tax revenue, I believe 3 pathways emerge: increasing the rates of existing taxes, introducing new taxes, and enforcing tax compliance. Given our current circumstances, the evidence overwhelmingly suggests that compliance, which includes the broadening of the tax base, is our most promising avenue. For example, think of our tax system as a water pipe with numerous leakages. Adding more water pressure simply forces more water through the existing leaks. The logical solution, therefore, is to fix the leaks first, ensuring that what flows in also reaches its intended destination. As a result of the leaks in our tax system, tax administration must sit at the center of our tax efforts. With a more efficient and effective tax administration system that ensures compliance, transparency, and accountability, we have the potential to achieve a tax to GDP ratio beyond the sub-Saharan African average of 16% and move toward the OECD average in the long term. Several key reforms were introduced between 2017 and 2024 to overcome the challenges hindering our tax revenue mobilization potential. Key among these are the revenue assurance, compliance, and enforcement initiatives, RICS, and the Integrated Customs Management System, ICOMS. However, the most far-reaching benefits of RICS and ICOMS are the extent of leakages revealed in our tax system. Some of the findings include the following. The free zones audit, which we conducted, showed that the non-enforcement of the letter of commitment did a major blow to our country. This was therefore introduced, taking effect from February 2024. A customs infrastructure audit, which we also conducted, revealed major scanner inefficiencies at key borders, including Akuffo, Addo, and Bawumia. We engaged 12 mining and oil companies for post-clearance audit, which uncovered potential mismatches between declarations and actual exports. And we identified many unpaid taxes. We managed to recover some of them. And so to address some of these challenges, we further streamlined, also implemented some other measures initiated at the Ministry of Finance to address tax revenue leakages. And number one, that is at the core of our strategy, is the medium-term revenue strategy, 2024 to 2027, which provides a clear path on legislative, policy, and administrative reforms needed to increase revenue and block the leakages. The MTRS, as we call it, is effectively a roadmap for the transformation of the tax architecture. We also launched a comprehensive digitalization drive to streamline tax administration and reduce the heavy dependence on human interventions that create opportunities for leakage. This is what we call faceless tax system. When we remove the human element from routine tax processes, we minimize corruption and maximize compliance. The personal identification numbers of all Ghanaian citizens who have registered for the Ghana card, now integrated with the tax system, has also made it easier, far easier indeed, for tax authorities to identify all eligible taxpayers. We invested in building the capacity of DRA officers to effectively engage with multinational companies. These companies employ sophisticated tax consultants to minimize their tax liabilities. We designed a strategic communication plan that prioritizes sustained civic education across the country to build tax compliant citizens. A cornerstone of our reform measures was also the rollout of the electronic VAT, the EVAT scheme, which enables the government to gather real-time data on taxpayers, particularly institutional ones, for the first time in the history of GRA. Even though, ladies and gentlemen, these reforms are expected to have far-reaching impact, there are still major challenges to be addressed, particularly in tax administration, tax scoping and design, as well as revenue maximization. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like at this stage to make some key observations which would likely affect tax administration and tax revenue maximization going forward. Number one, high-income sectors like the extractive industries offer boundless opportunities to mobilize tax revenue. It was Sosu and his colleagues in 2006 who said, and I quote, "In matters of mining taxation, governments rarely believe that companies pay too much tax. Companies rarely believe that they pay too little tax. And citizens rarely believe that they actually see tangible benefits from the taxes that are paid." Unquote. And so this tells you mining taxation is a complex arena, and we therefore need to find ways to tackle this problem associated with the mining sector. But what is clear to me, ladies and gentlemen, is that the current approach to taxing this sector in Africa, including Ghana, creates uncertainty, which could dampen investment in the sector overall. I do not believe that we should tax windfalls from mining companies by using tax handles outside the mineral agreements. It will increase in the growth and sustainability levy on mining companies. I propose instead a comprehensive fiscal regime with windfall tax features, such as those of taxes, to be the basis for legislative review and renegotiation of mineral agreements. This way, mining companies will incorporate these fiscal elements into their project assumption, thereby minimizing the risk of investment. And debt loading, cost inflation, and cost recovery techniques, which are used to understate tax revenues. Some of these practices have already emerged in a recent audit on upstream petroleum taxes by GRA, which have become the result of international arbitration. Number 3, the tax rate in Ghana is still narrow, as the economy is largely dominated by the informal sector. Tax experts do not support the use of limited resources to pursue low-income earners for taxes. This is consistent with the canons of taxation. However, ladies and gentlemen, the informal sector in Ghana is quite good to be ignored, as it constitutes about 92% of all registered companies in Ghana, 85% of all manufacturing jobs in Ghana, and 72% of all of our GDP. We can therefore structure or restructure, if you like, our SMEs through formalization and corporatization of their operations, support them with long-term financing and training to make them profitable, sustainable, and thereby become an important source of tax revenue. Next one, tax policy and administration is an important factor in determining the size of tax collection. The main policy instruments here, such as compliance, enforcement, reliefs, and exemptions, have undermined our tax system for long, as we continue to grapple with suboptimal level of policy combination that does not effectively assure revenue maximization. I'll give you an example. The Minister of Finance in October 2024 published a report which shows that many businesses below the VAT registration threshold choose to register for VAT. But the survey data also suggests that there are many businesses above the threshold that should register but who do not. They don't register for VAT at all, and they are getting away free. And this is why we have a gap of 61%. Ladies and gentlemen, a significant share of registered taxpayers also fail to file their tax returns or file a null return with zero sales and purchases. This is one reason why improvements in both voluntary compliance and enforcement are an important part of Ghana's medium-term revenue strategy. Next one. Tax instruments are either introduced or abolished without careful consideration of their impact on revenue. For example, a study by the Ministry of Finance again shows that the VAT flat rate scheme, which was open to small taxpayers in 2023, was likely to have both boosted tax revenues and focused the benefits of reduced administration and compliance costs on those who could benefit most from this scheme. Despite this, the government in the 2025 budget statement reversed the scheme. I still do not understand why the reversal in the scheme. I'm sure Prof. Sitting here and Anim will explain to you. It's also important for me to say that the IMF approach, Ghana is going through IMF. Now the IMF approach to fiscal consolidation would involve, and what we talk about tax testing, that is where countries resort to just increasing taxes, and at the end they tax out the entire economy. This is one of the features of an IMF program. Therefore, the design of most IMF programs, including Ghana's program, gave small premium to tax compliance as a vehicle for increasing tax revenue. Tax compliance did not count much in the tax revenue model. Hence, the significant increases in taxes in 2023. However, rather than making out tax testing, tax compliance measures, and widening the tax net could, whilst requiring investments, lead to correction in tax leakages. We know that tax increases can lead to higher costs for business. We know that tax increases can reduce the disposable income for individuals. And also we know that tax increases can slow down economic growth. They can also create political unrest, as we have seen in our history in Ghana. Our government, the previous NPP government, had to suffer from the increased taxes and the introduction of new ones in 2023. But this was required because we had to address a huge fiscal adjustment to meet the IMF primary balance target of 0.5% deficit on commitment basis. This adjustment involved a fiscal effort of 4 percentage points of GDP last year. That was a huge adjustment. And Ghanaians really did well by actually ensuring this was a huge adjustment, and I admit that. But the political consequences have been felt. Just as the political consequences of IMF-induced tax increases have become a feature of our political history, as we saw in 2016 and then in 2024. Notwithstanding the weaknesses of the IMF fiscal consolidation program, the fund in its regional economic outlook for 2025 alludes to some of the measures outlined earlier for addressing tax leakages by recommending efforts at broadening the tax base, reducing arbitrary exemptions, simplifying the tax code, and giving greater emphasis on corporate tax and property tax. I have a few issues exploitation of our oil reserves as investment in this industry will further decline. We must also take a strategic position on green investment finance. This investment, as you know, requires tax incentives to become bankable. They are always asking for tax incentives before they become bankable. Thus effectively undermining domestic revenue mobilization. We must therefore adopt green technologies and investments that are revenue neutral. In other words, we must have a strategy to recover potential lost revenue through graduated tax lines. We are in the era of trade wars because of the new tariffs imposed by the United States of America. Tariffs on imports from Ghana reduces the competitiveness of made in Ghana products for US markets. But reducing the profitability of Ghanaian exporters also means reducing tax revenue for our country. Some countries like China and Canada have also imposed reciprocal tariffs on the United States of America. And there are suggestions that Africa must also follow. Can we do that in Africa? From a tax revenue perspective, I do not encourage Ghana to retaliate for a number of exempt exports under the new US tariffs, standing at 0.4%. The effect is therefore very limited, particularly on our international trade position, which has largely supported our recent recovery. Also, a reciprocal tariff on imports from the US will increase the cost of US exports to Ghana, given the obsession in Ghana for imported products. This will reduce the disposable income of Ghanaians, thus leading to lower consumption and lower consumer tax revenue. This is my reason why I do not encourage Ghana to retaliate. In conclusion, I want to emphasize that when we can finance our own development, we dictate our own terms and set our own priorities. Conversely, when we cannot finance our development, we surrender our national law and decision-making authority to those who can. That is why the vision we must aim for is a Ghana that is truly self-reliant and self-sufficient. Ladies and gentlemen, we must work together to either strengthen tax compliance today or continue sacrificing our resources and sovereignty tomorrow. Viewed within this lens, the recommendations from today's dialogue must translate into concrete actions that transform our tax administration system. Your Majesty Chairman, distinguished guests, I hope that this national dialogue will set the scene for concrete decisions and be remembered for the transformative actions that will follow from this platform. I have no doubt we will achieve this because I know very well the panel assembled to do justice to this subject. On this note, let me thank you all once again. May God bless all of us and may God bless our country.
Thank you so much, Honorable Dr. Mohammed Addo, former Minister of Finance for the Republic of Ghana. Doc, we have to take some tax from you because you took so much of our time. Do you agree? All right, so let's take a brief remark now from the Member of Parliament for Madina, Honorable Francis-Xavier Sosu. If you're here, it's time for us to hear from you now. Let's welcome you.
Thank you very much. I'm sure I'll do less than 5 minutes. As we all are, yesterday's rulings caused havoc in my constituency, so we are still on a tour.
Tax administration and payment system platforms, real-time customer support, taxpayer segmentation, which has been mentioned, it's our focus, and proactive dispute resolution mechanisms to ensure sustainability of our work. Revising personal income tax thresholds and structures to reflect inflation and income inequity, ensuring lower income groups are not disproportionately taxed. Expanding tax incentives tied to compliance, such as earlier filter discounts, tax clearance fast tracks, and public recognition for compliant businesses. So, businessmen and women here, the GRA is assuring you that if you comply effectively and efficiently, there are some incentives for you. Your tax must work for you, and the Commissioner General of the GRA is very committed to that. Amendments to the Revenue Administration Tax and VAT tax to include stronger enforcement clauses, better transfer pricing regulation, and anti-avoidance measures. These reforms do not only speak to domestic needs, but also position Ghana to engage competitively in global tax negotiations. They also echo President Mahama's position that a fair tax system must serve the people, promote development, and not hinder enterprise. Looking ahead, we have an open mind and an open door to ensure that these feedbacks are well analyzed and then put into enforceable and implementable programs that will be to the benefit of all of us. The Ghana Revenue Authority reaffirms its commitment to our mandate in strengthening the tax administration by leveraging technology, data analysis, and risk management. We shall improve public education to ensure citizens and residents active inclusion and participation for a sustainable tax culture and compliance. Led by our Commissioner General, we at the GRA envisage a Ghana where tax revenue is harnessed effectively, supporting national development and public services. A Ghana where citizens understand their tax obligations and contribute to the nation's growth. Let us work together to stop revenue leakages, promote tax compliance, and build a Ghana that is prosperous for the next generation. Together we can achieve this. Thank you, and have a good afternoon.
Do you see how I didn't have to prompt her to end her speech? A round of applause for her. Thank you so much, Deputy Commissioner for Ghana Revenue Authority, LC Apawu Esquire. All right, I think now we are getting to the meat of the matter. We are going to get our keynote messages now, but to set the pace for that, or to set a tone for that, we will show you a non-fictional film presenting you the facts as it is. So while we prepare for our keynote speeches, let's watch this short documentary and then the message will follow. If the technical team is ready,